Hello, and welcome to this week's deep dive video. I have a little bit of a head cold, so I hope that's not too distracting for you. But we're going to be taking a deeper look at Mark chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. And we had the chance to go over this on Sunday, and if you've not checked that out already, I encourage you to go back, look through the sermon. This deep dive will make more sense. But in this passage, Jesus is teaching in a house. And as he's teaching, there's this paralyzed man in town who has heard Jesus is there, and he's desperate to get to him, desperate to be healed. So as he gets there, his friends help him get there, and as they get there, there's this crowd is kind of packed into this house, and they can't get him to Jesus. And instead of giving up and going home, they actually climb the stairs to go up to the roof of the house. They dig down through the roof and lower their friend down to Jesus. Now, as I was reading through this passage, I noticed there are three sets of people responding to Jesus. The first is the actual paralyzed man. Now, he would have been a little bit of a pariah in his society because there weren't welfare programs, there weren't all the medical advances that we have here today, and they didn't quite understand how it worked. And they had actually taken some Old Testament scripture and misunderstood what God was telling them. And so they had this idea that if you were paralyzed or disfigured, that it was a consequence of sin in your life or your parents' lives. That you deserved to be this way was kind of the idea. And there were moments where charity was not the most felt response to somebody that needed help. And often this man would have been had to resort to begging for his income to take care of his basic needs. Now, it also wouldn't be common to befriend a guy like this because there's not much in it for you. And again, if you think this is a consequence of his sin, then a good Jewish person's not going to jump in at this. You know, they're not going to jump in to be friends with him. So this guy would have been a little bit of an outcast and really desperately been looking for some way out of this condition, out of this situation. So he hears that there's this teacher, this healer that's going to be in town, and he is excited. Now, he's not met Jesus, but he's heard about him. And he's heard that Jesus has the ability to take all that is wrong in his life and flip it upside down and make him well, to make him whole, to restore him and set his life on this awesome course. And he is desperately trying to get to Jesus. And then the second group of people, or the second section of people I saw in this passage, were the friends. Again, this guy was kind of a pariah in his society, but he had friends. It doesn't say they became friends through this process. It says that his friends helped take him to Jesus. Now, I love that. Oftentimes in the church today, we are afraid to have friends outside the church. We think, man, we don't want them to be a bad influence. We don't want them to lead us astray. So we end up instead kind of closing in and becoming our own little clique. And instead of showing the love of Christ to those around us, we kind of hide down in our bunkers. These guys weren't afraid of that. These guys weren't afraid of any of the social nuances that happened there. These guys just loved their friend. And when an opportunity arose for them to introduce Jesus to their friend or them to get their friend to Jesus, they took it. They took it. They gladly did whatever they could. And when they got to these speed bumps along the way or they encountered these issues, that didn't shut them down. These friends instead rose to the occasion and they climbed the roof, they dig through. Now, know that this would have cost them. This was not something like, oh, I guess you did a good thing, I'll put up with the hole in my roof. No, these friends likely still had to make it right. They had to either fix the roof or pay someone else to fix it. They had to set things right, but they weren't afraid of the cost. They were afraid more of the cost of not getting their friend to Jesus. And then there's this third group. You have the group that's already there. You have the scribes and those that are already being taught by Jesus. Now, these are the punctual group. You know, we want people to show up on time. When you make appointments, it's nice to keep them. You know, we expect that kind of thing from people, and we appreciate it when people are punctual, right? So this group gets there. But the problem is, not only are they there with Jesus, they're really kind of becoming self-centered. You see, for them right now, it's all about their wants and needs. They're so focused on what Jesus can do for them, they don't see or acknowledge or care That there's this broken man outside trying to be healed. That there's this broken man desperately trying to get to Jesus. You'd think that if a guy came who was paralyzed, who could not get to Jesus, we'd let him go up front, right? Everybody's going to be able to see over him laying in his mat. You'd think that he would be let in, but no, they're so focused on what they want. Whether it be, hey, we heard this famous teacher's in town. I want to be able to say I've learned from him. Or hey, maybe I've got a head cold and Jesus could take away my head cold. Whatever it is, this group is so focused on their wants and needs that when the paralyzed man is there, they're not concerned. And I begin to think about the church. And I think sometimes we get that way, that we get there and we think to ourselves subconsciously, I'm hoping, but we think to ourselves, well, I made it. I'm done. I made it. And if they had been here earlier, they too could have made it. If they had just done their due diligence and things, they could have made it. And our faith becomes so self-centered. Our coming to Jesus becomes so self-centered that we forget it's all about introducing other people to him as well. The idea of our purpose being to know God and make him known. We just find comfort in knowing him and forget about the other part. And I just felt very convicted that oftentimes is the church. We get so focused on what we want out of following Jesus that we forget what he has called us to. And that's to go get others. And that's to go tell others the good news that those who are broken can be healed. Those who are divided and empty can be made whole. That he has come to redeem and restore. And we get so, again, focused on ourselves. We start to think, man, that's not how I would like things. Or, I don't like this about what we do. Or, if only we had this program. That was my favorite program. We get so focused on all these things that are not about sharing the gospel or building the kingdom. They're about just what makes us happy. And that's what this group had done. They were punctual. At face value, at first, they were doing all the right things. But in the presence of Jesus, they were actually keeping people from getting to him. And I hope that's not us as a church. I hope that's not Northeast Christian Church. But I encourage you to ask this question this week. Which of these three are you? As an individual, which of these three in this passage, this story, are you? Are you the paralyzed man who's broken and empty and needs to be made whole? Are you the friends who are desperately trying to get others to Christ, who they see this brokenness in those around them, who and they know who can fix it, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get those people to Jesus so they can be made well? Or are you that third group? Are you just comfortable in already being there? Are you just thinking about what makes you happy and your wants and your needs, and you couldn't be bothered with the wants and needs of those around you? That's my question for you this week. I hope that you take it seriously and look at these things. And if you find yourself especially in that first and third group, I desperately want to talk to you. If you're somebody who needs to meet Jesus, I want to introduce you to him. I want to have that conversation with you. And if you're somebody that knows him, but you've not really been following him, you're just finding comfort sitting by him, I want to talk to you as well. Because I pray you don't stay there. I pray that God breaks your heart for those around you who are broken, that you could be desperate to get others to Christ. I can't wait to see you on Sunday.